1,500 oil tankers are currently at a standstill in the Strait of Hormuz. These massive vessels are waiting for either permission or peaceful circumstances to navigate a waterway that is only 34 kilometers wide. While President Donald Trump claims that Iran has been defeated militarily, his own chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, admits that Iran is choosing to hold the world economy hostage. The ongoing ceasefire is now on life support. Diplomats are warning that the next 72 hours could determine whether the global energy supply recovers or if we're heading into an energy shock unlike anything seen in a generation. The global economy is now directly exposed to the crisis. This isn't just another diplomatic stalemate. On Monday, May 11th, 2026, Trump stood in the White House Rose Garden and rejected a new peace proposal from Tehran, calling the document a piece of garbage. He stated that the proposal was entirely unacceptable and that the current ceasefire is unbelievably weak. While the White House tells the public that the United States holds all the cards, the reality on the water suggests a much more volatile and dangerous future. To understand why this matters, you've got to look at your own wallet. Even an unstable truce in the strait can ripple through almost every part of modern life. Since February 28th, global oil stockpiles have fallen by 270 million barrels. Food prices have hit their highest level since 2023. American drivers are now paying 40% more at the gas pump than they were just 90 days ago. Trump campaigned on a promise to bring fuel prices down, yet they're now higher than they've been in years. This is the Washington-to-wallet connection that defines the current crisis. The deeper you look into the testimony from the Pentagon and the halls of Congress, the more the official narrative starts to fracture. There's a growing gap between the political messaging of total victory and the operational reality described by military leaders. To see why this matters, we've got to examine the specific evidence being presented in the hearing rooms of the United States Senate. We're following a story where the truth is often managed as carefully as the military operations themselves. The escalation intensified on Monday when Trump elaborated on his rejection of the Iranian proposal. He told reporters that he didn't even finish reading the document because he wasn't going to waste his time. Behind the scenes, the proposal was described as maximalist. Iran reportedly demanded formal legal sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, the total dismantlement of all sanctions, and hundreds of billions of dollars in compensation for war damage since February 28th. Perhaps most provocatively, Tehran demanded legally binding guarantees that the United States and Israel would never conduct military operations against Iranian territory again. The response from the White House was a statement of intent. Trump warned that if Iran didn't return with a serious proposal, the bombing would resume at a much higher level than before. This rhetoric sent immediate shockwaves through the global markets. Brent crude surged as shipping companies quietly rerouted their tankers away from the Gulf. The space for diplomacy is shrinking quickly. Iran isn't negotiating like a defeated country. It's negotiating like a nation that believes it's winning. Despite the military degradation described by the Pentagon, Tehran still possesses the power to stop the flow of global energy. The implications of this standoff extend far beyond the Middle East. Roughly 1/5 of the world's oil supply moves through the Strait of Hormuz. It's a bottleneck so narrow that a single military incident could seal it for weeks. When this corridor is blocked, the global industrial supply chain begins to starve. South Korea has already waited 10 weeks for a single tanker to arrive. China, which imports roughly half of its crude oil from the region, saw its imports drop by 20% in April alone. Almost everything transported in modern economies depends on energy. When oil shipping becomes unstable, transportation costs rise first. Then food distribution, manufacturing, airline costs, and consumer goods begin reacting afterward. That's why even distant geopolitical conflicts eventually show up in household budgets. If this fragile ceasefire officially fails, the economic pain will intensify for the average citizen. A conflict doesn't need to become a full-scale war to become economically ruinous. The administration is currently maintaining a naval blockade of Iranian ports that went into effect on April 13th. Central Command reports that 65 commercial ships have been redirected and 4 have been disabled. As these operations continue, the cost of the war is ballooning. In the hearing rooms of the United States Senate, the investigation into the administration's strategy has turned into a series of sharp clashes. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth appeared before the Committee on Appropriations to defend a $1.5 trillion budget request for 2027. During this testimony, Senator Tammy Baldwin raised a critical question regarding war powers. She noted that the 60-day clock for the war powers resolution expired on April 28. Under the law, the president is required to terminate hostilities after 60 days unless Congress provides a specific authorization. Baldwin pointed out the contradiction in the administration's claim that hostilities have ended while 15,000 troops remain forward deployed and over 20 warships continue an active naval blockade. Hegseth maintains that the president has all the authority he needs under Article 2 of the Constitution to recommence hostilities without a new vote from Congress. This internal friction suggests a constitutional crisis is brewing beneath the surface of the military conflict. Lawmakers like Senator Chris Coons have also questioned the lack of preparation, arguing there was no imminent threat that justified bypassing Congress in the first place. The evidence presented by General Dan Kane provides a stark contrast to the White House's claim of total military defeat. General Kane described the situation in the Strait as a complex tactical problem involving small boats and drone capabilities. When Senator Dick Durbin asked why, after a vast investment in national defense, Iran is still capable of stopping global traffic, the general pointed to the difficulty of controlling these asymmetric threats. He admitted that Iran is choosing to hold the world economy hostage and encouraged partners to assist with the tactical problem. There's also significant disagreement over the destruction of Iran's defense industrial base. Defense Secretary Hegseth claims the military has degraded these capabilities almost completely. However, Senator Jeanne Shaheen challenged this, noting that Iran is still producing drones and missiles. She pointed out that if Iran still has 50% of its missile capacity and the ability to pull drones out of caves to injure American allies, then the United States has not won this war. Furthermore, Senator Coons highlighted that while the conventional Iranian Navy has been degraded, the ability to harass commercial shipping using fast boats and cheap drones remains firmly in Tehran's hands. A deeper and more painful layer of this story involves the treatment of American service members and the stability of the defense industry. Secretary Hegseth told the committee that 90% of those injured in Operation Epic Fury have returned to duty, describing the injuries as minor. However, Senator Lisa Murkowski revealed a much different reality. She met with service members who were diagnosed with traumatic brain injuries after being injured in the opening days of the war. These soldiers struggled to receive timely care because military hospitals in Europe and the United States didn't have the capacity for them. Some service members had to wait for more than 3 weeks to receive the treatment they needed, beyond the human cost. The administration is facing criticism for misguided industrial decisions. Senator Murkowski expressed alarm over the abrupt choice to cancel the Wisconsin-built frigate program, which was meant to provide vital capabilities for future conflicts. She argued that such decisions pull the rug out from under American shipyards and leave the fleet less prepared. Senator John Kennedy questioned why key allies are still not carrying more of the burden during the crisis. These issues create uncertainty for the industrial base at a time when the administration claims it's maxing out on naval power. Neither side appears ready for full peace or full escalation. This tense pause seems to be managing a war rather than stopping one. While the United States talks of peace, they maintain a naval blockade. While Iran talks of a ceasefire, they continue to launch missiles and drones. This state of permanent danger is being funded in part by the loosening of sanctions on other adversaries. Senator Shaheen noted that Russia is making $4 billion a month from oil sanctions relief, money that could be used to fund the very drones that are injuring American troops. The role of China is also central to this crisis. Beijing imports roughly half of its crude oil from the Middle East, and its entire industrial supply chain depends on energy flowing through the strait. If the United States cannot secure a deal, the Trump meeting with President Xi Jinping becomes a negotiation about who mediates the next phase of the crisis. This shift could represent a massive realignment of global power away from Washington. The ceasefire remains on life support, and the next 72 hours are critical. While Trump talks of a very simple plan, the ships in the Strait of Hormuz are slowing down again. History shows that when the ships slow down, events move very quickly. We've also got to consider the wild card of Israel. Ambassador Mike Huckabee noted that Gulf states must now choose a side between the United States and the radical Shia fanaticism of Iran. If Prime Minister Netanyahu doesn't believe the primary threat has been neutralized, the conflict could explode into a wider regional war regardless of what is signed in Washington or Beijing. The space for diplomacy is shrinking, and the margin for error is almost zero. And if diplomacy fails, the economic consequences could spread far beyond the Gulf. In our next investigation, we'll examine what the oldest light in the cosmos reveals about its true beginning. Subscribe if you want to continue exploring how modern cosmology is still unfolding. The Strait of Hormuz remains the most important economic choke point on Earth. If tensions continue to rise while political messaging grows more contradictory, the financial consequences will reach far beyond the Middle East. This crisis is a reminder that the decisions made in Washington hearing rooms eventually reach your gas pump and your grocery bill. We're tracking how geopolitical conflict, energy markets, and economic pressure are reshaping the global order in real time. Across history, our picture of the universe has changed, and we're following that transformation step by step.